Hey, hey. Hi, guys. Welcome back. All right, Ophiuchus, let's go ahead and take a look at the person on Ophiuchus's mind. I'm going to go with this deck, I think. All right, here we go. Whomever that may be, let us see. Ooh, okay, we got cards popping and sliding and popping everywhere. Hi, Patricia. Great to see you, babe. We've got the Seven of Pentacles. It is in the reverse. We've got the Chariot sideways. We've got the Judgment upright, the World upright, and the Sun upright. That's a lot of major arcana, and they all really wanted to come out. Okay, so first off, although it feels like something is imminently happening for this character, right? No delays. This says I've already figured it out. I have the answer. Now, I say no delays, but the chariot is sideways. I would say that shared energy where it's like, okay, things can happen now. We have the judgment card upright, the world and the sun. I would say this is somebody who wholeheartedly believes either that they can have a reunion and have a do-over with Ophiuchus. I mean, this is that, Phoenix rising from the ashes. This feels like somebody who has so much hope. They're so convinced, like, this can work. Either I can come back into the fold, come back into the wolf pack, or because that alpha pair does mate for life in the wolf pack, I know that this is going to work. Me and Ophiuchus can be back together. This is definitely about reconciliation, at least on their side, in their mind. They're convinced that they can have not only a reconciliation, but a very happy one with Ophiuchus, is how I'm looking at this. Hi, sweet Carolina. We have a Four of Swords. We have a Page of Swords. Okay, they have done a lot of healing. They have also been either paying close attention or noticing something. I don't know if they've approached Ophiuchus yet, or if they're like, I am so sure now seems like the right time. I've been spying for a long time. I see something about Ophiuchus. I sense Ophiuchus is in the same place as me. They don't want to fight either. They want reconciliation too. That Two of Pentacles says they believe this. It doesn't mean they're right. But with the spying and information gathering, by the way, I just got so chilled. Oh my gosh, I'm freezing. We have a Queen of Wands sideways. I feel like they want the same things that I do. I feel like it almost seems like they also are saying, I know I'm like hot-tempered sometimes, and I know Ophiuchus is also maybe in their spying. Let me ask, have you been spying? Knight of Swords, they spy a lot, and they spy like frequently and impulsively. This definitely looks like, this can be thoughts. This can be, vocally. So I feel like they are, lots of times I look at lightning as like neurons firing in their brain too. If this person like sees things, reads things that like Ophiuchus posts or something, they are gathering that as information and saying, oh my God, Ophiuchus is just like me. They too know that sometimes, we are imperious and impulsive, but we're also passionate people, and they know that that's why sometimes there's fireworks, but they also want peace just like I do. And as I've read these things or I've spied on their social media, I am seeing that Ophiuchus is like conveying these same ideas, and I'm putting two and two together, and I'm saying they're talking about me, they're applying it to me and Ophiuchus. Okay, there is a danger in looking at things and imagining that there's secret messages that are meant for us. So I don't know if this person's tripping or if there's any merit to this. Let's go over to Ophiuchus. What does Ophiuchus think of this person? Let's see. Hi, Jenna. Hi, Ken. We have got the Empress. Okay, I said, what does Ophiuchus think of this person? And we start out with Ophiuchus thinks highly of this person. They think that either that this person is generous, or by the way, that person we've been describing could be an Empress, so maybe a Libra or a Taurus. Queen of Pentacles. This is pretty impressive. Ophiuchus seems to think that this person has grown a lot, will continue to grow, definitely has a generous heart, but is like committed to kind of bettering themselves. Well, this feels kind of amazing. So hang on, Ophiuchus, if you have such a good opinion of them, what's the deal? We have an Ace of Pentacles sideways, we have the Temperance sideways, and we've got that Nine of Cups sideways. If anything, Ophiuchus is like, oh yeah, we had some time where we talked and then we didn't. Everything went into cricket mode. I've kind of known that we would probably have a new beginning at some point when everything's balanced. Look, this person's a great person. The way I look at this is like Ophiuchus has never thought this was a villain, but they definitely have felt like things got either out of balance at one point or there was a very valid reason why these two quit interacting. Let's say, at the beginning I said this could be not romantic. This could be like, I'm pretty sure Ophiuchus and I can come back into the wolf pack, or I can come back into the wolf pack and be a part of Ophiuchus's life again. They're great. Yes, they're fiery and all of this, but so too am I. This could be more like, heck, mother-daughter. This could be siblings. This could be friends. This doesn't have to be romantic. The only card that kind of indicates that it could be romantic is this Nine of Cups. So let me change decks for a second and say, what is the interaction between these two? Because we might be dealing with a non-romantic storyline right now. Like two people who haven't talked in a while, but they really like each other, or, siblings get into fights and then they are pissed off. Oh, there's love here, but is it romantic love? That Ace of Cups is there with the dove coming out of it. So this is two people who definitely love each other. Okay, Ace of Wands. So it is passion. Okay, so I'm going to say this is a love story. It's one of those stories where there's attraction and real love here. But maybe these two have been fiery, even though they both obviously think the world of each other. What went wrong then? Can we see why do they have to come back together? Why the Judgment card? Seven of Swords in the reverse. They might have had a tough conversation, but a lot of truths were spoken. But it's still, if you're going to say stuff that's super real, it doesn't mean that you're always going to deliver it very well. We have High Priestess and we have the King of Pentacles sideways. I think that these two had a moment where they either talked about stuff that, I don't think they cut each other down. I just feel like both people knew. This could have been somewhere around Halloween, or Day of the Dead. But it's like both people knew that there were there was a heavier conversation maybe, or maybe both of them were being raw and honest enough to talk about, stability or lack of stability, the question mark of stability. What are we building? What are we growing? What are the things that, again, I don't think that these two tried to cut each other down, but sometimes talking honestly about like, okay, so here's the thing. I notice that when you get defensive, you don't want to come to the table and talk for a bit. The other person's like, well, I've noticed that you dismiss stuff. They might have both said some things, not to be hurtful, because this looks very mature. This doesn't look like two people screaming and hooting and hollering at each other necessarily. But then again, we did see them with the Queen of Wands sideways. Like, we both get fiery. So maybe they did hoot and holler a bit. But it also says, it's like both people know you weren't trying to hurt me. You were saying something that was not even, I can't really disagree with. You got my number. You understand something about me, about the way I'm not always willing to be like someone who stands my, ground, or I'm not always willing to generate growth in the moment. I almost think two people did say something to one another, but I don't think that they can contest it necessarily. That's why it almost feels like the way family members fight, I know this is romantic after all. These two they love each other. They're passionate about each other. But I will say that the comfort zone that they actually have with telling each other some truths, and the fact that they're both big enough to be like, all right, so yeah, I didn't want to hear what you had to say, but you're not actually wrong. Your assessment of what you just said about me is kind of spot on. That kind of almost speaks of two people that either are much more mature, which this whole storyline looks like two mature individuals who are getting through the problems. They both kind of sat in their separate corners and thought about the argument, the fight, or the words that were spoken, because nothing was said to be mean, and it also wasn't wrong. It's kind of impressive that two characters are big enough people to be like, yeah, you're kind of right about that. That is kind of the thing I do. But they both They both knew it. This isn't two people who hate each other. This is Ten of Wands sideways. If anything, they may come out with a stronger relationship than ever, because sometimes when we have moments where we are fiery and we do say stuff to each other, but it's also true, and each person goes, they weren't trying to hit below the belt. They were telling me that they want to be with me. They love me, even though there are some personality quirks. So there are some things that I do. There are some things that they called me out for. But you know what? That person wasn't walking away from me over those things, which means they must really like me for me, huh? It almost feels like this is the chance for both people, especially if they want to get back together and have this happiness together now. Both people are like, that means you see some of my quirks or my flaws or whatever, but you still like me enough to be with me. That starts to feel pretty damn secure. That feels like I don't have to stress out so much. Maybe I want to temper my behavior and stuff, but at the same time, you accept me even as an untempered, unpolished, flawed human. That feels pretty safe. Both of these people have such a good opinion of each other, and it's so refreshing to see. Universe, do we have two people coming back into great happiness then? Seven of Cups. The universe is like, well, it all depends on what they want to do. The timeline could go many different directions. It really depends on what they choose to build. They could blossom from this. They could grow from this. They could have great passion, or they could get into fights a whole bunch. It depends. That Devil card is there saying, we have the Sun. It's interesting. This could go super beautiful or it could go super wrong still. It depends on if characters come back together and say, great, you accepted me as I was. I'm not changing nothing, because you already kind of said that you know who I am. That's who I am. Deal with it. If they choose that path, then probably they won't have happiness. They'll have more fights and arguments. On the other hand, the timeline could be, like we already said, wow, you see the traits in me to a certain extent. We all have certain things that we can't really change about the makeup of who we are, but we might be able to, have a partner that gently puts their hand on our shoulder and says, babe, you're doing it. And it's like, okay, give me 5 minutes. I'll cool off. Yes, this is behavior. I know I get super defensive. Sometimes it's like if they can come up with a safe word or something to call each other out gently when one or the other is doing it, instead of getting passive aggressive and pissy, this could actually become something that they laugh about. It all depends on them. They could laugh together and say, oh God, here I go again. I know, this is the thing. This is my trait that triggers you, and then this is the trait that you trigger me over. We can either laugh about it, and we can say, look, I'm trying, but you're going to have to call me out when I do it. But can you call me out gently? And it could be fun, or it could go to hell in a handbasket. It depends. If they expect each other to acknowledge things and then never make that mistake again, that's probably too tall an order, and they're going to be disappointed. They're not going to be able to say, now that I understand, I shall never do that again. It's not really feasible. But these two seem so mature. I don't picture them having like over the top expectations. But I like the fact that the universe goes, you never know. It all depends on if these two have a more lighthearted approach. So, final message here. I just want to see for Ophiuchus, Girl of Cups. Ophiuchus is more than willing, if they feel like they want to say sorry, or they want to both say sorry and accept an apology, they're very open to this. Also open to that first little, like, let's start over, but start over by knowing, I said this in some other story not too long ago. It's like, maybe these two need to like create a jar and write down like 5 sorries in the jar. So then when they have the same boo-boo that occurs between them, it's like you pull one out and hand it to the person and be like, I'm sorry. And when those 5 sorries are out of the jar in the month, after that, it's like, okay, I need to like, sorry isn't enough. I keep making the same mistake. Now I can visualize it, because I only got 1 sorry left in there, and we're only in the first week of the month. What the heck? My behavior really needs to change. It almost feels like it just feels lighthearted. It feels like there's something that these characters could do, but it feels like Ophiuchus is very into the concept of I can give and receive apologies. I can give and receive grace. This looks beautiful. Okay, what about for them? Sun in the reverse. Remember, they have the sun upright. Now they have the sun in the reverse. If anything, their big worry is, what if Ophiuchus isn't happy with me? They know that they want to be with Ophiuchus all day. They see all this. They have a very hopeful opinion that they're me and Ophiuchus wants me back. But oh God, what if I don't consistently make him happy? Will I be able to? This is all about two people. I would say these two will be great together because they both care so much about the other one. They both care about not making the other person miserable. And I would say that is, if that's the motive, like, I never want to hurt you. I don't want to make you miserable. I know I'll make mistakes and I might upset you and hurt you, but I hate the idea of you not being happy with me. Then that to me says volumes about, what people do is not quite as important as why they do it. If they're trying, they care, and they still fumble and make mistakes, we can give a lot of forgiveness and be like, I know you didn't mean to hurt me. I know that. I know how much you care. I know you're working on stuff. I know we're both, acclimating and trying to change old patterns and stuff. And I love the fact that you're trying to do that for me, even if it's not always perfect. So I can give more grace and I can give more forgiveness when you say sorry after you do a repeat of the same boo-boo. But at the same time, I know that you really care about wanting to make me happy. That goes a long way in a relationship. To maybe these two are going to be kind of the strongest couple we've seen in a very long time. All right, you guys, I'm going to leave this one here. Thank you so much for hanging out. Patricia, I hope you're feeling a little bit better as the day goes on, babe. And so happy to hang out with you. Yale Reuben, G, Dragon Night and Day. Love your name. Thanks for being here. Ken Ramey, hi. That's awesome. Annie S., good to see you again, sweetie. Lightning Cass, Fees Mystic Faith, delighted to get a chance to hang out with you. Delinda will probably pop in way later. I know Delinda was probably slammed busy today too, but I always think of Delinda for Ophiuchus, since Delinda is the reason we do Ophiuchus. Delinda brought it up to my attention and said, will you do Ophiuchus? And Delinda had to ask me for probably like 6 or 7 months before I remembered, yes, let's add that into rotation. And now Ophiuchus, we have to be faithful and can keep Ophiuchus going. So you guys are so awesome. Ken, I will let Delinda know you were giving her a shout out. You guys are so lovely. Thanks again, Jenna Henry. All right, you guys, lots of love. I'll see you in Scorpio next. Bye for right now.